Well, I can't imagine anyone going into this Netflix adaptation of D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover and thinking it wouldn't be a bit racy. I mean, if you're looking for passionate lovemaking, you're in luck. But what about a good story? An unhappily married aristocrat begins a torrid affair with the gamekeeper on her husband's country estate. There have been numerous adaptations of the spicy novel, and this newest one that stars Emma Corrin and Jack O'Connell certainly doesn't shy away from crafting a sensual love story. If you're unfamiliar with the overall story, it follows Connie, a young woman married to a rich man named Clifford, who returns from the war injured and unable to walk, among other things that involve him from the waist down. Now, Clifford wants to maintain the family heritage and announces a shocking idea to Connie. Later down the road, Connie begins to feel an attraction to the estate's gamekeeper named Oliver, and they eventually begin an affair. And that's when the crap slowly hits the fan and it causes all sorts of drama for the three of them. So let's address this right up front. Yes, there is a bunch of nudity and sex in this. I mean, it's hard to present this story in an accurate way and not include that. And the scenes are handled well, and they actually work to create romance and passion, where we begin to feel a connection between the characters rather than just a romp in the tool shed at any given moment. Now, if sex and nudity on screen does make you uncomfortable, this is definitely not the film for you. But if it doesn't bother you, then the story could intrigue you. The acting is pretty good, with character development devoted to Connie that really helps to build out her mindset, which is important when examining her actions. Emma Corrin is able to portray love and devotion, heartbreak and loneliness, and then even adoration and joy. And each emotion she brings out feels genuine and intense, like she doesn't have a regulator for these feelings, and she experiences each one to the maximum degree whenever they come on. Jack O'Connell as Oliver is much more reserved and quiet. His demeanor mimics that of a servant class, where he swallows his pride on multiple occasions just in order to maintain his employment, even if he's being taken advantage of or treated as lesser than. He also, though, can showcase some intense emotions, and there's a level to his passion that meets with Connie's that's equal in intensity, making for a really good pairing. Now, they have good chemistry together, and when the inevitable conflict arises, there's a risk that's felt to the relationship, like something actually was hanging in the balance, and if they can't work it out, the relationship will be over. And I appreciate that the gravity of this is palpable and it translates through the screen. I gotta say, though, that the story as a whole is kind of a depressing one. We see and hear about all sorts of unhappiness from so many people that work or live in and around the Chatterleys, and that includes the Chatterleys themselves. I know this is there in the story to make it more acceptable or palatable for the affair to happen, to put just Connie in a relationship that's unloving and cold so that we can root for her to find happiness, even if it is outside her marriage. But there's also a meanness to the story, especially with the character of Clifford. The sadness and anger that's welled up in him just exudes over everything else, creating a tone of disdain and self-centeredness that casts a dour glow over everything. And I think there was a big opportunity to create more character oomph for Connie. She hints at a social conscience, wanting to have her husband provide better care and wages for his employees, but this story doesn't ever really give her the screen time to delve into these feelings other than in a very peripheral way. She'll mention them, even visit with the regular folk, and then get annoyed when her husband looks to take advantage of business situations, even if it comes as a detriment to the workers. But that's where it stops. Connie gets upset, but her answer is to constantly run off and have a shag. And it just comes across as a bit odd, and I would have loved to have seen the story use more of those angles with the character, which then makes her more complex and nuanced. Now, one cast member that surprised me was Jolie Richardson. At first, I didn't know she was in this, and then the first time she was on screen, I didn't even recognize her. But I love her character of Mrs. Bolton. She's warm and kind, and is able to provide wise words and then comfort at just the right moments. She's understated in this, but a real standout for the little bit that she gets. Now, the movie's a little longer than I thought it would be, at just over 2 hours. The whole thing is a bit slow in the pacing, but it doesn't drag. It's just told more patiently, especially as the story provides all of the groundwork for the affair to come about. Set and production design are wonderful. Everything looks and feels like the early-ish 1900s. The costumes are appropriately stuffy and pompous for Clifford, and when we see the villagers, they all have a bit of grime to them, creating a good bit of believability to that time. So, for as passionate as the lovemaking scenes are, there's not much else to this movie. The love story is shrouded in sadness, which makes it harder to enjoy, even though we can root for the couple because they seem to be so much in love. The story doesn't embrace much of the depth that it looks to create, opting instead for sensuality over substance. Now, the acting is wonderful, and I enjoyed the characters, but in the end, this became a pretty forgettable film. If you're looking for something hot and heavy that you wouldn't want to watch either with your kids or your parents, this can tick that box. But I'm not sure the world needed another adaptation of Lady Chatterley's Lover, as nothing new was captured or created in this. There's a ton of sex and nudity, a lot of profanity, and just a bit of violence. I give Lady Chatterley's Lover 3 out of 5 couches. So have you ever watched a movie with maybe your parents or kids that you didn't realize was risque, but it turned out to be very much that way? So what'd you watch? And what were the reactions? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.